that there are attempts to reform the economy and get it back on speed because we are greatly challenged on all fronts. And this is not to say how badly insecurity has ravaged the country for the past more or less decade.
Yeah.
Now, um, at the top of the list of issues, which was actually stemmed from the pronouncement in the inauguration when the president said OT law, and by
It's
that
gone.
he inadvertently removed fuel subsidy from the system. It led to, and also the harmonization of FX, it led to some immediate moves by the market, which saw us take an increase, a steep increase from about 300, 400, 300 naira to about 450. And then at that point, after there was a jump again to about 468 and then 500 depending on where you live. Now marketers have come back to say that, oh look, they're not able to import, they can't find the FX because it's trading at 910 naira to 950 per dollar. If this continues, it will jump up again to about 610, sorry, 680 to about
700.
720.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the range that they've given. Now some have, there's been back and forth debate over how to address this. Obviously, Nigerians cannot survive, the bulk of Nigerians, because one thing that is at the top of issues within a country called Nigeria is inequality. Inequality is hardly spoken about, and what that simply means is that a few people have all the money. Like 2% of Nigerians have all the money, and obviously this was not done by very legit means.
No, globally also, a few percentage have all the money.
Yes, but you see, in some other climes, that's not that's a false equivalence, because in those countries you can track and trace how those people got rich. Okay, but in Nigeria there are many people with heavy loaded gorilla accounts that you cannot trace what they do, how they do it. It's and the government obviously is not receiving the tax for all that money. Now, what we're saying is because there were measures muted by the president himself that if inflation or some of these new policies run amok, that they would step in or intervene. Hence, someone mistweeted yesterday that the administration was going to reintroduce fuel subsidy, right? But that was quickly debunked by the essay on media that there is no plan to reintroduce any form of fuel subsidy. There is no condition to support any increase in the price at this time. Now, let me read the next statement. The next statement is the beginning and the end of this report. The president is convinced, based on information before him, that we can maintain, okay, current pricing without reversing the current deregulation policy. Deregulation speaks to the fact that government is not fixing the price, it's
Yeah.
a function
It's a
of
free
demand.
market.
Yes, free market demand and supply. By swiftly, operative word swiftly. OT law was said May 29th,
Mm.
which was today.
Today's the 16th of August.
Today's
It's
August
Wednesday.
16th.
16th.
They've not even swiftly rounded up with NLC and the TUC. And here they are giving us sound bites that clean up the existing inefficiencies. Now, that inefficiency speaks to the reality of the problem within the midstream and downstream petroleum sector. Now, um, there wouldn't be any there wouldn't be any subsidy reversal at this point in time. Now, what are those existing inefficiencies? Because these are the issues that we expected the presidency, having taken the mantle of leadership in the oil and gas sector, to have addressed. Also, why you need your full team on ground to ensure that you can begin to deliver on these aspects. One, bad road. Ipman and Moman, they had charged the federal government to address the bad roads. Now, the bad roads were one in terms of the dilapidated states, which makes them mount more insurance and fixing their trucks, etc., when they're distributing fuel around the nation. Whatever they take on, they pass it to the customers. Two, the insecurity. In many places, they're kidnapped. In many places, they go through excessive charges. All this that they face to bring fuel to your pumps, they will pass it on to the customers. Two, address the FX shortage supply. That's what Moman was saying. Some of them needed to bring in fuel into the country, which was responsible for the current increase. They couldn't raise up to 25 to $30 million. The banks didn't have it. Obviously, we understand some of the reasons that are given to why Nigeria does not have sufficiency to be able to supply every sector that needs. Crude oil theft, that's part of the reason why we're not making enough dollars to be able to allocate to as many strategic industries. NNPC stock, those days by now, NNPC would have said, don't
60
panic.
days
We
stock.
have, where is that stock? We're not seeing it. It's not affecting anything.
No, but then the NNPC also released in their defense. The NNPC released a message yesterday asking Nigerians not to panic. Of course, we read that message also on Business Express with
Yes.
Okorie, saying that there's no panic. The government, they are not planning to increase in their outlets, underline it in their own outlets, and knowing that the NNPC is not the only major player in this industry. So what if everybody now can afford to buy from NNPC?
Apart from that, we haven't seen them release their stock. What I say release the stock, meaning do they have enough stock in place to release and affect the price? Remember, it's demand and supply. And the big elephant in the room, which is hardly ever spoken about, is corruption. We understand that the monies that were meant to provide sufficient and adequate petroleum product for Nigerians was compromised. It was stolen by many. We've not heard their names. It seems as if ghosts have been operating in this country for a long time. Highly organized crime. These are the inefficiencies we expect the presidency to address. And knowing that if they address some of these inefficiencies, the external pressures may not be directly impacted on Nigerians.
Okay, well said, Devoe. We have to get back to Lakunle now for his paper this morning. But before we get to Lakunle, we'd like the listener to know we expect them to be part of this conversation every step of the way on 0809 444 0981. WhatsApp messages only 0809 444 0981. Lakunle, it's over to you from the Punch newspaper. 6.9 billion naira procurement fraud. Federal government arraigns Emefiele allies on Thursday.
So
the words of Emefiele, any end in sight just yet?
so
You want him to be a prophet.
we have moved from
Terrorism.
undefined reason for detention
No, it was
to-
terrorism charges
to possession of arms
without
now without license, now to procurement fraud. That's one. Two, there was a time in this our nation where this catchphrase was very popular: due process. We even named one individual Madam Due Process.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason for that was because we wanted to curb the excesses of public servants in things like this. If you look at the numbers of money that is in this report, it's above 1 billion naira. I am certain, I don't have the facts but off the top of my head, I am so certain that there's no individual that any law in Nigeria allows to single-handedly approve a contract of 1 billion naira. We can check it, we can confirm it. I am almost so certain that there is none. But here we are. The CBN governor is alleged to have approved, which means he signs off on it. By means of any purpose, the CBN is still a parastatal of government, and it should be subject to the rule of the BPP, that is the Bureau for Public Procurement. Any procurement above a certain amount must be referred to that agency, who will advertise and people will apply for it. That is the basic foundation of BPP. I am not aware that BPP has been shut down. So the question is, what then is the job of BPP today? If at the CBN this happened, that's two. The third thing that we can think that I'm seeing in this report again is the idea that how public officers cheat the system in which they thrive. So I work in CBN, I go set up a company of my own. So every contract that the CBN is going to give out, we will award it to ourselves. Then we are the best paid people in Nigeria again. Our salaries are out of this world. And then when there is recruitment, we don't advertise to the public. We advertise it among ourselves. You know, you get where my drift is going.
Yeah.
Then the fourth thing in this now is that where and when would somebody at that level, now to the moral, as the CBN governor, by all means, there is no how any amount of money should phase you. Anybody works in CBN at all, because one of the arguments they give why they pay them that much is that they don't, because they are a regulator, they don't want them to be attracted by possible inducement by the people they regulate. So why these things happen in this place is an indication that if it happens here, it happens in other places, if this is true.
Well, until now, allegedly.
Yes. Unfortunately, the way this story, as this Godwin Emefiele matter are developed over time, makes us to think that there's a problem with our investigation in Nigeria or our agencies. Now we move from sponsoring terrorism to possession of arms to this. And so when and how is this going to end? I think that a lot of things need to be corrected. In my opinion, I think that they should just allow the gentleman to just go, because I don't think we have anything firm to hold this man by.
If you just joined us, you're on to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. I see the messages piling already, but keep the messages coming on 0809 444 0981 after this time out.
It's smooth music. Are you in a state of dilemma wondering the best way to grow your money? I'm here to tell you.
So when we come back, I'll go to messages, then I'll go to Devoe. I'll come to you when we come from the break now.
Okay.
And after I take some messages, they are here already, so that we don't acquire the messages unnecessarily. Oops, you guys are
Because pay for flood. Every year we say this.
Yeah. I think we had one story last week. Was it this week? We had one story like that now where they talked about flood or something.
That was the disease one.
No.
Literally, Loma, that was
Loma,
Loma.
we did Loma, yeah. But Loma also we tilted into flood
We
too.
ended up with that because they blocked the
Yes,
drains.
yes, that's what makes me feel that way. That's true.
It's hot inside this place.
No.
As you open the door now, I felt the difference.
We're back in 8 seconds. We're back. Smooth 98.1 FM. It's gone 13 minutes before we hit the 8 o'clock mark, and we're looking at some of the papers this morning, the local newspapers, and I've got Devoe Okorie here with me. Good morning, Devoe.
Good morning.
I've got Lakunle still here with me.
Hi.
And let's get on to the messages, because I see them piling and coming in floods already. Then got another kind of flood we're warned about in the days of Noah, and of course, coming this season also. But
are we not in them already?
Oh, maybe we should be moving towards the hack by now. But let's get into a message that was sent in by Tony Chima. It says, Devoe, please consider Eku subsidy was gone in May. Excuse me. There will be partial subsidy from August. And that's Tony from Ikeja. Before you judge Emefiele on air, why don't you provide him with the space to defend himself? So far, this government has nothing against Emefiele, and that's why we said allegedly. It was mentioned while Lakunle was talking about the story. And let's get into this next one from Yemi from Marina. Good morning, guys. I agree with you, Devoe. Allow me to add, in a truly deregulated market, the government cannot say for certainty that prices will not go up. Diesel is fully deregulated, and that's why government cannot tell you much about its price movement other than what is speculated. There is definitely some sort of subsidy in place if prices are being fixed. If this is the case, who is asking this? Who is taking these monies? Is is this another rabbit hole? Why can't the government be upfront with the public in a deregulated economy? The only kind of control government can have is price ceiling and price floors to contain the excesses of economic juntas. The government needs to rethink some of these steps. I'm in full support of a full deregulation to save Nigeria. God bless Nigeria. Ken Ihetuge says, good morning, all. May the souls of the departed terror attacks in the past rest in peace. And it goes on. President Tinubu has become the market force by declaring that there won't be further increases in the pump price of petrol. Subsidy, according to him, Ken, is back. And I've got Ifeanyi from Iba. Ifeanyi Oku Olise from Iba says, I believe that government should be willing to retrace its step as regards some of these inhuman economic policies that have plunged many Nigerians into abject poverty. Let the government address inefficiencies in the system. And Ajayi comes by with this one from Magodo Isheri. Good morning. The soaring inflation in the country is now as a result of the removal of fuel subsidy and the floating of the naira in the foreign exchange market. No developing country survives the onslaught of these two policies. So says Ajayi Oloninlua from Magodo. And that moves us safely now to Devoe Okorie this morning. Inflation hits 24.08% as Nigerians struggle with higher food prices. That's coming from the Vanguard newspaper. Devoe, help us break this down in 2 minutes.
Well, we'll try and just play down on numbers, but at the same time, we want to make sense of the numbers that have been pushed into the markets. Right now, we're hearing that inflation in July is at 24%, right? That's an 18-year high, driven by the increment in food prices, transport price hike, energy cost hike in terms of electricity, fuel, PMS, kerosene, Jet A1, that's the one for planes, diesel, and even gas. Now, obviously, this is the gradual impact of the full subsidy and the FX harmonization policy moves because it takes time before it extends into the economy. It's now being recognized. However, the with the consumer price index, okay, we're looking close at what people are able to do. We've seen that the food price inflation was majorly driven by food prices and non-alcoholic beverages. And we're looking at some other, in terms of some other aspects where people buy like water, housing items, clothing, footwear, transports. Now, the real issue here is this, because at the end of the day, who inflation help, as some say? How has 24% or 100% inflation changed the price of Gary in the market? In this instance, it actually has. And the issue here and the debate in the minds of many people is that though they have pegged it at 24, because it was at 22 for a long time, the real impact, what people have seen from their pockets, is almost a 200 to 300% increase. So I don't really understand this 24%. That's like a marginal 2%. Is that how much prices have been in the market? I mean, just take a look at fuel. Fuel moved from 470 to about.
And it's not reflecting in that.
Yes.
People have their disposable income is shrinking.
It's not even shrinking. It hasn't changed, and it cannot buy as much.
Yeah.
Two, let me just drop. The high importation nature of this country leads to terrible pricing in the market because most of the things that we get or buy or use are imported. And with the sinking price of the naira in terms of exchange rates, it becomes completely abhorrible to even afford anything. Now, just to add a glimmer of a window of hope in all of this, inflation can be tamed. It's not the first time. The right economic policies, like I said, the fuel subsidy removal and the FX harmonization were 2 out of 10 steps. I repeat myself, 2 out of 10. There are many more that the presidency needs to take. Like this morning, they spoke to, okay, if we address the inefficiencies, then we can, bring it down to an affordable rate or create an atmosphere where people are able to afford without living and groaning in pain. Now, this is where you move Nigeria. The only reason we don't have what we need is because we have majorly for many years been consuming and not producing enough to make back, to even pay for what we consume or even make excess. So these are the economic principles that do not respect your feelings or your sentiment or where you come from. If you don't produce, then you will suffer the knee to your neck when it comes to paying for imported
And
items.
then you can't really breathe properly. That's true. With
The,
your
the,
with the
the,
knee to your neck.
even the rich can't breathe when inflation ties everybody at the neck.
Quickly, Lakunle, just drop this one and then we go to you, the paper.
Just for real comparison of what we're talking about the rates of inflation. Okay, so this time last year, a 10-kilogram bag of rice was 4,600 or thereabouts. 2 days ago, it was 10,100 naira in the same store. So it gives you an idea of how much the inflation has climbed over stuff.
Yes. So that take us to this other paper, this story. Reps move to address multiple taxation. That's according to the Vanguard, Lakunle.
Okay, so the ambassador of Korea visited the Speaker of the House of Reps, Mr. Tajuddin Abbas, and of course, the way it is, ambassadors all over the world are the eyes, ears, the physical of their country and countrymen in those places. So this visit, I am thinking that it must have been a prompt from the Koreans who do business in Nigeria saying, look, ambassador, we may have to leave because this. So Mr. Ambassador says, guys, hold on. Let's see if we can get this thing done, right? About 30, 40 years ago, Korea came to Nigeria with a car brand, and people said that that car was not good that time, that if you drove it, after some time, it could catch fire, you had no second-hand value, blah, 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 blah. That same company, in 20 years after they first showed up in Nigeria, ventured into other things, heavy equipment, construction, real estate, supported by their government. Now they make the company split into 2, 3 now, right? And 3 of all those 3 companies are here in Nigeria today, doing business in Nigeria. Many of us drive their cars, use their equipment in our construction sites, and there are so many others like that that we don't even know. So if all these companies are here and they are making money and they have highlighted the thing we talk about every day about our issues here, multiple taxation, you pay local government. If you don't pay, the one you pay legally, the one they extort out of you. You drive between 2 states, there are some men standing on the road to collect radio license from you, and so on and so forth. We have a joint tax board that legislates on all these things, but everybody ignores what the joint tax board says and does what they like. Everything is free for all. And so these are the things that we need to be worried about. If every company goes, or every organization or every country represented in manufacturing, whatever business in Nigeria, highlighting these problems, we need to make those moves to end these things. However, we are going to do it. Thank God, Mr. President has inaugurated a tax committee, and this is part of what he's giving them to do. So I hope the House of Rep, the National Assembly in general, will work with that committee to help us look at these things and give us a solution that would be attractive for foreign investors to come here.
That takes us to Devoe for this final story here. And enjoyment allowance, that's from the Daily Post newspaper, to senators, part of office running costs. The National Assembly making explanation now. 2 million naira or so. So that's simply for their running costs.
There's not much time, but what I'll say is this. One of the National Assembly the Secretary of Research and Information, Dr. Aliu Moru, he came out to more or less defend the mischaracterization of the payment of 2 million to senators, which took place recently, where people had he believed that they were misinformed, that the prayers that were shared to the emails accounts were part of some kind of largesse that was being distributed. However, he was saying this payment is actually part of the 2023 budget. It is under monies that that senators earn as part of the Appropriation Act, that it is used to facilitate activities for representation and legislative activities. There's nothing new about it. It wasn't created, but the way it was, passed off, it made it look as if somebody did something special for somebody else. Now, fine and good, okay? The problem, I think, here is optics. Nigeria, as you have heard through all our stories, Nigerians have a knee to their neck in terms of survival. Many people, to the tune of 150 million Nigerians, cannot afford a meal a day. And here are some fat cats who were just elected, now in quotes, collecting what is their emolument. I think for the fact that he has told us that this is actually what is due to them, it's time as part of the policy measures. If you've asked Nigerians to sacrifice, we have to start looking at government officials and what goes to them. And we have to start seeing measures taken by them to actually sacrifice. We can't be tightening our belts and your belt is being loosened.
To allow more in.
Yes.
So let's get the messages now, Devoe. Thank you so much. Let's get to the messages as we wrap up the show this morning with this one coming in from, it says, in one breath, you want the government to tackle corruption in the oil industry, and in another breath, they take that recommendation and apply it to the CBN, but somehow that's witch hunting. What do Nigerians really want?
So what's the respect? What's that story about? Which story is it?
That's the Emefiele. You talk about, we're looking at curbing the inefficiencies in terms of subsidy removal and all of those, and then it links up also to the Emefiele story. So we must start from somewhere. So now you can't fight all of it everywhere. So that's what he's responding now. So now the government is trying to do something, but it seems like every time they try to do something, it seems like, no, they're wrong. So what would they ever do right?
No.
But let's get back to message. I say good morning, freshly pressed of mass and vibrant analysts. It is obvious that we are a long way from freedom. Just imagine a deafening silence from government during the absolute nothing, yet the mess they plunged the economy into. No solution anytime soon. Just impunity and corruption have a jamboree while Nigerians are living, in poverty. I see Pastor Dapo with a message from Falomo Roundabout. Like Devoe said, these inefficiencies should be addressed. Names of subsidy stalwarts made public with due punishment. All these simple measures would invariably put more public confidence in the system. Next, Chima, I see your message. I also see Dakbo Lawal with a message here. If the CBN governor's crimes are financial, shouldn't the EFCC be the ones dealing with his case? Where is the chairman by now? Anyway, guys, we're due for time. It's time to go. 5 seconds.
Please let us understand that the law is not emotional. The law is the law. The law says that we cannot detain anybody indefinitely without charge. So if you're going to have a charge for him, let him go.
So I want to say thank you to Devoe Okorie this time around. Good morning, Devoe. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to Lakunle for your time.
Thank you.
Well, the last bus stop would always go to Redeemer Puza from Surulere. Tunji, I see you. Shegun, I see the message you sent in. Anthony Francis Wale, I see Yinka Bolu, a regular. Dakpo Lawal, Tony Chima, Pastor Dakpo, Joseph Menyi. All of you
Yinka
guys
Bolu, good morning.
Are the real MVPs of the show this morning. Have a great morning. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa.
Why are people emotional? The law is